Holocaust is a word that is widely recognized. Porojmos is not. This term refers to the Nazi murder of the Roma people during World War II, the Roma Holocaust. The Romani, or Roma, are an often stereotyped and misunderstood ethnic group that is found throughout Europe. Originating from what is now northern India, the Roma migrated westward, reaching Europe during the 1100s. In Europe, the Roma were almost immediately discriminated against because of their nomadic lifestyle, different culture, and darker skin color. This discrimination, both socially and politically, contributed to an image for the Roma people as generally being criminals, fortune tellers, and mistrusted characters. Those unfamiliar with the Roma might know them by a different word, Gypsy. Although common even within some Roma communities, the term Gypsy is considered by many to be offensive. Gypsy is an exonym, meaning a name placed upon a group by outsiders. When the Roma arrived, Europeans believed, due to their dark skin, that they were from Egypt and were thus Gypsies. The 1971 Romani World Congress voted to not accept any exonyms and to use just the words Roma and Romani instead. Those are what will be used in this video outside of historical context. Discrimination against the Roma continued from the Middle Ages without ending. When Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power in Germany in 1933, the new government, based on racial superiority, inherited anti-Roma laws that were already in place for years in Germany. These laws restricted Roma ability to obtain jobs, inhabit certain regions, and live free from discrimination. Building on this foundation, the Nazis continued to persecute the Roma. In the pre-war years of 1933 to 1939, the Nazi government passed increasingly dramatic laws intended to strip the rights of any individual or group that they viewed as inferior. German Jews were targeted, as well as Jehovah's Witnesses, communists, gay men, the Roma, and others. In 1933, the Nazi legislature passed a law permitting the forced sterilization of Roma throughout Germany. Their reasoning was simple. If the Roma were unable to reproduce, they would cease to exist. 1936 saw more drastic measures enacted. In preparation for that year's Olympics, Berlin was purged of its Roma population, who were forced into a camp in the suburban area of Marzahn. The 800 Roma forced into this camp represented the first time that Nazi force was used to put all members of an ethnic group from one area into a camp. They were never released and were deported to other concentration camps, such as Dachau in 1938. The same year that Marzahn was established, police were ordered throughout Germany to arrest anybody with so-called gypsy features. Those incarcerated were encamped as well, and became the subject of anthropological study and unethical scientific experimentation by German race scientists, who were seeking to prove the inferiority of the Roma as a people. An important result of this research was the compilation of extensive Roma family trees, later used during the Holocaust to track individuals to murder. The war years impacted the Roma within Germany in similar ways to the Jewish population. In Germany, and in the territories that the Nazis invaded, such as Poland, Roma were rounded up by the military and their collaborators and forced into ghettos. In ghettos, decisions on who would be deported to death camps for the most part fell on internal Jewish councils, called the Judenrat. In forcing Jews to make the agonizing decision of who would live, the Nazis made an impossible situation even more demoralizing. In making these decisions, the Judenrat would oftentimes single out those they considered outsiders in an effort to preserve those that they were close to. In those ghettos, the outsiders were Roma, who were, for the most part, the first groups deported. In camps, although separated in separate blocks in many cases, the destiny of the Roma mirrored the Jews. ultimate extermination of the entire Roma race was the Nazi goal, through malnutrition, gassing, and working them to death. In the largest death camp established by the Nazis, Auschwitz, the Roma section was called the Ziegener Familienlager, or Gypsy Family Camp. The Nazis killed the entire population of this section in a single day in 1944. The total estimate is that 23,000 Roma were imprisoned at Auschwitz. By the end of the war, 21,000 of those were killed. The Nazis murdered between 220,000 and 500,000 Roma during the Holocaust, in camps, ghettos, or by execution in the countryside. About half of the pre-war Roma population of Eastern Europe was murdered, and approximately a quarter of the entire Roma population of Europe was killed during the Holocaust. Even greater number of Roma were the victims of forced displacement, abusive scientific experimentation, and loss of livelihood. The Nazis lost the war, but following years of recognition of the genocide against the Jews, the Roma continued to ask for recognition of their own suffering. During the Nuremberg trials, which represented the prosecution of Nazi officials for their crimes, not a single Roma witness was called to testify. Scholarship about Roma experiences during the Holocaust remained in their infancy as well for many years following the end of World War II in 1945. Several scholars from the 1950s through the 1980s wrote pieces calling out the lack of study on the subject. Interest rose about the Roma during the 1990s, a period that saw an increase of general Holocaust studies publications. But the desire was still not great to include the story of the Roma as the only other ethnic group beside the Jews that were targeted on a massive scale for destruction. Today, publications are more frequently likely to include Roma within their scopes, and while progress has been slow on gaining public awareness, following the 1982 recognition by the German government of the Roma Holocaust, there has been an increasing number of countries giving voice to their role in Roma persecution. It wasn't until the 1990s that memorial services began to include the Roma for their Holocaust remembrance ceremonies. Today, in Europe, the Roma continue to be discriminated against, both socially and legally. Several countries have special districts or camps where Roma are allowed to live. Public opinion about the Roma continues to be negative, hindering any work to address past injustice. The phrase that is often attributed to remembering the Holocaust is "never again." But, faced with the continued lack of justice for Roma victims, both in the past and in the present, before, during, and after the Holocaust, perhaps a more appropriate quotation is a simple question. Still, because for many, including the Roma, persecution did not end with the Nazis losing power, but has continued in various forms to the present in ways that need to be addressed. In addition to the bibliography at the end of this video, you will find links to organizations and websites that hold charitable actions for the Roma community, by the Roma community, to address their needs and wants in the ongoing crises that they face.